One wrong word, and you could lose everything. A careless phrase thrown out there and goodbye to a friendship, an opportunity, your credibility. Do you realize the power your words hold? This isn't an exaggeration. What you say can build your future or destroy it. And if you don't learn to control it, you'll pay for it with what you value most. Today, I'm not here to tell you to speak better. I'm here to teach you to value silence, to speak less, and with purpose. Because Stoicism made it clear, if you don't master your tongue, you don't master your life. In this video, I'll share 10 Stoic principles to help you stop sabotaging yourself with your own words. You'll learn how silence can give you more strength, more respect, and more power than any speech. These lessons aren't theory. They're tools to help you grow quietly, with intelligence, and become someone who inspires, not someone who constantly explains themselves. Stick around till the end, because the final lesson is so powerful it might change forever the way you relate to the world. But before we begin, let me tell you the story of someone who lost everything just because he didn't know when to keep quiet. His name was Lucas, and if there was one thing he believed from a young age, it was that words could open doors. What he never imagined was that they could also slam them shut. Lucas was one of those people who always had something to say. A clever remark, a quick critique, an ironic line delivered at just the right moment. Back in high school, that made him the center of attention, and for a while it seemed like talking was his greatest weapon. He had an opinion about everything, confidently expressed, even if he didn't really know what he was talking about. And the worst part? The more he talked, the more convinced he was that he was right. By the time he was 26, he was working at an ad agency, creative, spontaneous, funny, until he wasn't. Because one day, everything fell apart. It happened during an important meeting. His team had been working for weeks on a delicate campaign for a mental health brand. Everyone was tense. The client was listening carefully. And in the middle of a serious presentation, Lucas cracked a joke. One of those jokes that only seem funny in your own head. One that made light of the issue. Silence. Awkward glances. And then, the meeting ended early. The next day he was called in. The client had pulled out. They'd lost a big account. And yes, they confirmed it. It was because of the comment. That urge to say something, to stand out, to not let the moment pass without slipping in a line. Lucas couldn't believe it. It had been just a joke, a 3-second phrase, but it had undone a month of work and shattered the client's trust. And the worst part was that no one on the team defended him. On the contrary, they looked at him like the guy who ruins everything he touches. That night, for the first time in a long while, Lucas was silent. No music, no TV, no notifications, just the noise in his own head. He sat on the floor of his living room, still in his office clothes, no energy even to take off his shoes. He felt this strange emptiness, like something had broken, but he couldn't quite tell what. It wasn't just about work. It was that, for the first time, he realized his way of being was costing him everything. He didn't know who to trust. No one from the team had messaged him. Not a single call, not a single defense. Just a dry message from his boss asking him to reflect. And then came that feeling in his chest. That kind of pain you can't name. Maybe anger, maybe fear, maybe just loneliness. He looked in the hallway mirror and didn't recognize the guy staring back. For a moment, he felt like no one believed in him anymore. That one phrase had turned him into the problem, the one who gets in the way, the one who doesn't belong. And he thought about quitting, seriously, walking away, disappearing for a while. Because when you feel broken inside, the last thing you want is to show your face. That's when, without really knowing why, he opened a book his sister had left on the living room table days earlier. Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. He wasn't expecting to find anything helpful. He just wanted to kill time. But one sentence hit him like a slap in the face. Think before you speak. Many times, silence is the best answer. He read it again and again, because this wasn't theory, it was a wake-up call. He felt like Marcus was speaking to him directly, like someone 2,000 years ago had already figured out what he still hadn't learned. That was the first step. He started reading more. Understanding that silence isn't weakness, it's control. That staying quiet doesn't mean you're losing. That talking just to talk is a form of weakness. And that, as Seneca said, those who talk too much lack self-control. Lucas started practicing, listening more, holding back his opinions when they weren't needed, spotting that impulse to speak just to fill the silence, and letting it go. Slowly, everything around him began to shift. So did the way people saw him. He was invited back into projects, not because he talked more, but because he talked less, but with purpose. Today, Lucas isn't a different person. He's exactly the same. He just learned something many never do, that one word can build you or break you, and that sometimes real power lies not in what you say, but in what you choose not to say. Before we go on, if this content is bringing you value, consider subscribing and becoming an exclusive member to unlock unique perks. And tell us in the comments, what words are you going to start keeping to yourself so your life can speak louder than ever? Or simply write, "I'm a Stoic. From today on, I choose the silence that builds, not the words that sabotage me." 1. Do you really have to say that? Let me tell you something you might not like, but it could change the way you relate to the world. Not everything you think needs to come out of your mouth. Yes, you heard that right. Even if you're right. Even if you're angry. Even if you're dying to say it. Because some words may seem harmless, but when fired off without control, they become bullets, destroying relationships, opportunities, even your own image. And the worst part? Most of the time, you don't even realize it until it's too late. Think of your mouth as a misaligned machine gun. If you don't adjust your aim, it shoots in all directions, and instead of protecting you, it causes damage, even to yourself. Speaking on impulse, as an automatic reaction, without thinking about what you're saying or how it might come across, is like walking around with a loaded gun in your pocket, without knowing when it's going to go off. If you want to learn to control what you say, you need to stop firing every time something stirs inside you. That's the first step toward peace and toward real growth. Seneca made it clear over 2,000 years ago. Solitude and silence are not enemies, but allies in the pursuit of virtue and wisdom. And that's not just poetic, it's a warning. Because every word has weight. Speaking without control isn't strength, it's weakness. True mastery begins when you choose silence as a tool, not as punishment. When you decide your tongue won't act on its own, but under your command. Have you ever said something and regretted it a second later? Picture this. You're in the kitchen with your partner. It's been a long day, you're exhausted, you haven't stopped all day. And suddenly she says something like, "You always leave everything lying around, you never help with anything." And without thinking, without even taking a breath, you snap. You know what? If it bothers you that much, just do it all yourself. Let's see if that finally makes you happy. Silence. That heavy kind of silence. She looks at you, says nothing, and walks away. And you're left there, holding the pan, heart pounding with that knot in your chest. You already know you crossed the line, that it was impulsive, that it wasn't fair. And now, you don't just have to fix the fight. You also have to apologize for something you didn't even mean. But it's already out, and it already hurt. My friend, that's not control. That's letting yourself be dragged by the first impulse. And you know what a real Stoic would do in that situation? Nothing. He'd breathe, wait. He wouldn't respond with fire. Imagine Marcus Aurelius living today with social media. He'd be provoked every hour, insulted, baited into arguments. And him, in his mental toga, would just look at the screen, breathe, and go write in his journal. Because he knew real power isn't in reacting. It's in choosing when and how to speak, or whether it's worth speaking at all. But don't worry, reacting like that isn't your fault. There's a reason behind it. The Argentine psychologist Pablo Nachtigal says our most impulsive part, the reptilian brain, activates when we feel threatened. And even if that threat is just emotional, our body reacts as if there were a lion in front of us. That's why words shoot out like arrows. But if, in that moment, you manage to pause for just a few seconds, your rational brain kicks in, and what was about to be a pointless fight turns into a wiser conversation, all thanks to a few seconds. So, what about you? Are you going to keep letting your tongue run the show? Or are you going to start practicing the art of speaking less and with purpose, like a true Stoic? Let me give you 3 tips to start doing it today. First, when you feel that urge to say something, wait 3 seconds. Breathe. That tiny space between impulse and action can save you from saying something you'll regret. Second, always ask yourself before speaking, is this building something or just venting my emotion? If you're just about to throw words like someone throwing stones, wait until you're calmer. And finally, have an emergency phrase ready. Something you can say to buy time without sounding rude. For example, let me think about it for a second. It sounds simple, but it works better than you'd expect. It's a graceful barrier between you and your automatic reaction. Because yes, learning to control what you say isn't just about speaking better. It's about living better, having peace of mind, and not continuing to sabotage yourself with your own voice. Every word you hold back on impulse is an invisible victory, and those invisible victories are what make you strong, calm, and trustworthy. My friend, think about this. What if your greatest display of intelligence was your silence? That one question could change the way you express yourself from now on. 2. Stop telling everyone your plans. Let me tell you how I went from sharing all my plans to staying quiet and watching things actually start to happen. I used to be one of those people who announced every new idea like it was a press conference, but I didn't always get the support I hoped for. I remember once, full of excitement, I told a coworker I wanted to take a course on advanced design software. It was an intensive training that would allow me to apply for a better position within the company. More responsibility, better pay, and a real chance to grow. I'd already checked the dates, talked to an advisor, and was about to sign up. I told him everything, hoping for a bit of encouragement. Maybe a, "You've got this." But his reaction was very different. He chuckled and said, "You? Since when do you know about that stuff? You can barely handle your email. What are you going to do with something that technical?" It was like slamming the brakes. I went quiet, caught between embarrassment and frustration. And the worst part? I started to doubt myself. I let the enrollment deadline pass. I convinced myself maybe it wasn't for me. But the sting lingered for weeks. You know what happened in the end? That same coworker took the course without telling me. Finished it, applied for the job, and got it. The job I wanted. The one I found. The one that could have been mine if I hadn't talked too much. And if I had read this quote from Marcus Aurelius in time, I probably wouldn't have abandoned my own idea. The accomplishment is in the doing, not in the showing off. You know what that means? That while you're out talking about your plans, someone else is quietly taking the first step. Real progress doesn't make noise. And if you truly want to start controlling what you say, my friend, you need to start here. Stop wasting words on what you haven't done yet. Because when you learn to keep your goals to yourself, you're also learning to protect your energy, your focus, and your peace. No, I'm not telling you to live in total secrecy. But there's a big difference between sharing and showing off. Between expressing an intention and making it your entire identity. Because every time you talk about something before doing it, your brain thinks you've already made progress. It gives you a fake sense of reward. And then, when it's time to take action, you've lost your drive, no urgency, no hunger, just a pile of excuses for why you haven't started yet. Think about it. You probably know someone who says every Monday they're starting the gym, tells everyone, even posts about it, and says the same thing 5 Mondays in a row without leaving the couch. Or that person who's been about to launch a business for years, but it's always coming soon. Lots of talk, zero action. Entrepreneur and author Derek Sivers is a clear example of this. He always says that when you share your goals before achieving them, you trigger a premature reward circuit in your brain. It's like getting credit for something you haven't actually done. That's why, many times, the more you talk about what you're going to do, the less drive you have to do it, because you already got your dose of approval. And the worst part? You've accomplished nothing. So do you want to change this? Try this. Write your goals in a private notebook, a space that's just for you. Read them when you need to remind yourself why you started. No, the world doesn't need to see them. What matters is that you don't forget them. Another thing that works is telling your goals only to people who will help you or hold you accountable. Someone who won't just applaud, but will look you in the eyes and ask, are you doing it or are you just talking about it? That, trust me, is worth more than 10 empty compliments. And if you want to start changing your language, change phrases like, I'm going to do this too, I'm already working on it. Because if you haven't started, better to keep it to yourself. Speak when you have results, not when you just have intentions. My friend, think of a rocket. While it's being prepared, everything happens in silence, calculations, adjustments, tests. No one sees it, no one cheers. But when it's ready and it launches, everyone hears it. That's how your plans should be, quiet in their construction, thunderous in their results. Because when you work in silence, no one can stop you. But when you talk too much, anyone can beat you to it, or sabotage you. Now tell me, have you ever shared a plan with excitement, and someone betrayed you, discouraged you, or just shut it down before you could even start? Share it in the comments. Your experience might help someone else protect their path. 3. Those who listen understand more. I'm sure it's happened to you. You're talking to someone about something that really matters to you. Maybe it's a personal problem, a tough decision, something that's been on your mind all day. And while you're explaining it, you notice the other person nodding, but their eyes are already scanning for their turn to speak. And as soon as you pause, they hit you with something like, well, that reminds me of the time I... And just like that, the focus shifts. You feel invisible, ignored, like what you said was just a stepping stone for them to talk about themselves. And the worst part, my friend, you've probably done it too. Because we're so used to speaking, we've forgotten how to listen. And here's the ironic part. Listening more actually makes you seem wiser, more empathetic, and yes, even more interesting. Today we live in a time when everyone has something to say. Everyone's got an opinion, a correction, an interruption, competing to be right. But hardly anyone listens. And that, ironically, gives you a massive advantage. If you learn to truly listen, to look people in the eye, to pay attention without thinking about your reply, you become different. You become someone people seek out. Because today, more than ever, listening is a superpower. And if you really want to start controlling what you say, if you truly want to stop sabotaging yourself with your words, you have to begin by speaking less, to listen better. Eloy Lopez, a Spanish leadership coach, sums it up like this. When someone feels heard, they respect you more. Not because of what you said, but because of how you made them feel. He says that in his coaching sessions, people don't remember his advice, but they remember how he looked at them, how he listened without judgment, without interrupting. That's what sticks. And I'll bet you anything, my friend, you probably remember a teacher from school with a lot of respect, but if you really try, you couldn't repeat 3 sentences they taught you. So why do you remember them? Because they listened to you. Because they made you feel seen, important. Because when you spoke, it didn't seem like they were planning to correct you, but to understand you. That's what makes the difference. And let's be clear, listening doesn't mean just being quiet. Listening is active, it's presence, it's intention. It's not about being mute, it's about being so present that the other person notices. And that builds respect, admiration, trust, and peace. Because when you stop entering every conversation to stand out, and you enter to understand, everything changes. You avoid arguments, misunderstandings, and you save energy. If you want to be someone who leaves that kind of impact, first, Look people in the eye. Yes, that's simple, but also that powerful. And if you can, put your phone away. Make it obvious that you're there, not somewhere else. Second, reflect back what they told you. Say something like, "So what you're saying is," or "What you need is this." That shows you're processing, not just waiting for your turn. Imagine your sister tells you she's overwhelmed with work, that she has no time for anything, that she's tired all the time. Instead of jumping in with advice like you need to get more organized or you should try meditating, you could say, "So what's really weighing on you is that you feel like you don't have any time for yourself." Just by saying that, she'll feel heard. She'll feel like you were really there. And chances are she'll open up more. Because when someone feels understood, their guard comes down. And that, these days, is a gift almost no one gives. And third, pause before you respond. Sometimes the other person just needed to say it out loud. They weren't looking for advice. They just needed to feel heard. Because so often when you're quiet and truly listen, you understand more. And when you understand more, you speak with more clarity. And when you speak with more clarity, your words carry more weight. Remember what Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so we can listen more and speak less." That wasn't just a catchy line, it was a practical guide. Because those who speak constantly don't learn. They don't pick up on nuance. They don't grow. The wise one, on the other hand, watches, listens. And when they finally speak, they do it with weight, with precision, with impact. 4. Don't speak when you're burning inside. Picture a huge barrel of gasoline. It's full, sealed, pressure building inside. And right next to it, someone lights a spark. Not with bad intentions, maybe they don't even realize it. But the fuse is there. The heat rises. And if no one does anything, it explodes. Dangerous, right? Now, replace that barrel with your body. And the gasoline? It's everything you're holding in when you're frustrated, exhausted, or about to lose it. The rage that's been building. The tension from your day, the disappointment, the fear. Now imagine someone says something that rubs you the wrong way, even if it's not that serious. What do? Are you going to spark the explosion with your words? Because if you do, there's no doubt. It all blows up, and there's no going back. Seneca explained it with an image so powerful it feels like it was written for this exact moment. Anger is an acid that can do more harm to the vessel in which it is stored than to anything on which it is poured. And he was right. Because when you speak from emotion, your words don't come from reason. They come from pain. And sure, maybe you win the argument, but you lose the relationship, or your credibility, or your peace. And my friend, that is a price far too high for not having waited 5 minutes. You know what the key is? Learning to spot that moment, that instant when you're about to explode, and choosing not to speak. Yet, as the Spanish educator La Seco woman puts it, you're not yourself when you're upset. You're your emotion behind the wheel. What does that mean? It means you have to stop reacting from drama, stop going through life blowing up and then apologizing afterward. One of her most viral exercises is this: write what you want to say when you're furious, and save it for a few hours. When you read it later, 90% of the time you realize it made no sense. You just needed to let it out. It seems like a tiny thing, but trust me, I tried it and wow. I was honestly embarrassed when I read it back. I'm sure you've had a moment like that. You're swamped at work. You've got a dozen things going on. You're finishing up an urgent report, and just then your boss asks for something else. A well-meaning coworker comes up and says, "This is easier if you do it this way." And without thinking, you snap, "I don't need you to save me, okay? I just want to be left alone so I can work." And they walk away. And you're left there knowing it wasn't that serious. They were just trying to help. But because you were overwhelmed, you used words like weapons. And now, on top of stress, you've got guilt to carry. To avoid that, try La Seco woman's trick. If you're really upset, write what you'd say, but don't send it. Don't act on it. Seriously. Open a note just for your emotion. Say everything you need to say, but in writing. Then save it. If it's on your phone, lock it with a password. If it's on paper, stash it in a drawer where you won't see it for a while. Later, read it again. You'll be shocked by how different it feels. While you're waiting, don't just sit there. That's the worst thing you can do. You've got to move. Leave the room. Go to the bathroom. Drink some water. Open a window. If you can, take a walk. Or put on your favorite music and dance. Break the moment. That alone can drop the emotional temperature and let your brain reset. Once you've calmed down, there's something even more important to do. Ask yourself, why did I react that way? Is it really about this moment, or is it something deeper? A lot of times you're not reacting to what's in front of you. You're reacting to something that's been building for days, or weeks, or even years. And if you don't take that pause, you'll keep exploding in the wrong direction. Remember this: controlling your words when you're calm is easy, but learning to stay silent when you're on fire inside, that's emotional mastery. That's what gives you peace. That's what real growth looks like. So don't speak when you're burning, because even if you put out the fire later, the ashes stay with others. 5. Not everyone deserves to see your vulnerable side. Tell me something, my friend. Have you ever shared your most personal story in a casual conversation without thinking about who was sitting in front of you? And then regretted it? Because it happens. There are people who open up like they're on a reality show. They tell their entire life story in the first conversation. Family drama, past traumas, emotional wounds, everything. But later, when someone betrays them or uses their words against them, they say, "I never saw it coming." And from the outside, you might think, well, no surprise there. You told everyone. But you know what? It's not that simple. Because when we share something personal, we're not expecting betrayal. We're hoping for connection, relief, understanding. And that's where the problem lies. We give it away without knowing if the other person knows how to handle it. That's why you're here, my friend. Because you already know that not everything needs to be silenced, but it does need to be filtered. Because silence, when it protects your peace, isn't coldness, it's wisdom. Marcus Aurelius said it simply and directly. Don't worry about what others think of you. Focus on what you think of yourself. What does that mean? That you don't need to reveal everything to feel valid. That your worth doesn't depend on how many people know your scars. That some battles are fought and won in silence, with no audience. I'm telling you this because it happened to me, with someone I thought I knew well. We saw each other often, talked regularly, shared time, and I thought I could trust them. So one afternoon after a long talk, I decided to open up and share something I was deeply ashamed of, that I struggled with food anxiety, that there were times I couldn't stop eating even when I wasn't hungry, that it made me feel awful, guilty, out of control. And as I shared it, I felt a weight lift. I thought I'd been understood. But a few days later at a dinner with friends, something happened that I never imagined. I was eating more than usual, nervous about something that had happened at work. And suddenly, right in front of everyone, this friend joked, "Hey, slow down. Looks like you can't stop today. What's going on? Got some of that food anxiety again?" And I froze. It felt like all the air in the room disappeared. Everyone laughed awkwardly. I swallowed hard, faked a smile. But inside, I broke. I felt shame, anger, helplessness. Not because of what he said, but because I'd given him access to a part of me he didn't know how to respect. From that day on, I learned. And that's why I'm telling you now. I don't want the same thing to happen to you. Something that helped me a lot was listening to Molo Sebrian, the creator of the podcast Understand Your Mind. In one episode, he talked about how we shouldn't turn our vulnerability into social currency, because sharing your wounds doesn't make you more relatable if you do it without awareness. It just leaves you more exposed, more fragile, and more hurt if someone misuses it. So what can you do? First, before sharing something intimate, ask yourself, has this person shown me loyalty or just friendliness? There's a big difference between someone being nice and someone being worthy of knowing your deepest pain. Also, try sharing something neutral first, not too personal, but something you can observe. Do they keep it to themselves, or does it travel? That'll give you a clear sign. Because someone who shares what belongs to others will definitely share what belongs to you. And remember this, you don't have to tell everything to heal. You can process it with yourself, write it down, reflect on it, cry it out in silence, or share it with a professional, someone who knows how to hold space without judgment. But not just anyone, not someone who listens just for entertainment. Not someone who hasn't proven they'll treat your words with care. My friend, this isn't about staying silent out of fear. Not at all. It's about speaking when you know you're being heard with respect. About protecting your process. About growing without needing to display every step. 6. Sometimes silence commands more than words. Shh. Do you hear that? Exactly. Nothing. That's the sound of respect, the sound of control. Because silence, when used wisely, is powerful. It doesn't need decoration or explanation. Well-placed silence is like a wall of marble, solid, impenetrable, elegant. Meanwhile, the one who talks non-stop, without thinking, without pause, is like a paper wall. It crumples at the first touch. All noise, no strength. Leonardo da Vinci knew this well. Yes, beyond painting and inventing, he understood the power of silence. He said it bluntly, "Nothing strengthens authority so much as silence." He, who observed more than he spoke, understood that in a world full of noise, the one who masters silence owns the moment. It's not about staying quiet out of shyness. It's about your presence needing no explanation. Because when you stay silent with intention, it's like speaking in bold. Silence isn't absence. It's presence, it's strategy. It's a wordless statement that says, "I'm here, I'm listening, but you won't drag me into the mud." Marcus Aurelius got it too. In fact, he wrote it down for anyone who wants to master their words. The best answer to anger is silence. Because when someone yells and you don't respond, it doesn't mean you're losing. It means you're in control. Let me paint a scene I know you'll recognize. A family meal. Topic: vacation plans. One wants the beach, another wants the mountains, another doesn't want to go at all. Suddenly everyone's yelling, interrupting, blaming, and you stay silent. Not out of passivity, but because you know this isn't your battlefield. You just listen, observe, breathe, and while everyone else loses control, you stay composed. In the end, you're the only one who didn't say something regrettable, the only one who didn't have to apologize, the only one who commanded respect without raising your voice. Not long ago, I listened to an interview with Jefferson Fisher, and he said something that made me stop the audio and take notes. He was talking about those moments when someone throws a loaded question at you or makes an out-of-line comment, and our instinct is to react immediately, to respond like we're defending ourselves in court. But he said, "Wait, pause, don't answer right away, because when you go silent, even for 3 seconds, you don't come off as uncertain, you come off as powerful, grounded, in control. The other person gets uncomfortable, but you're steady, you're present, and that, my friend, commands more than any fast, nervous reply ever could. So how can you start using this? Try this. When someone comes at you with words, don't fire back right away. Stay silent. Look them in the eye, not with aggression, but with calm resolve. That pause is worth more than 1,000 responses, because what you're doing is breaking the game. You're not stepping onto their field. You're not falling into their trap. You're silently saying, "You're not pulling me out of my center." Another strategy, which Fisher explained brilliantly, is to use that pause strategically when someone asks a tough question or throws a passive-aggressive comment your way. He says that if you reply impulsively, you can come off as insecure or rattled. But if you pause, even just for a beat, you radiate calm, clarity, and control. You show that you think before you speak, and that earns instant respect. Like he says himself, sometimes the most powerful response is the silence before it. And if it's really hard for you to stay quiet, because your body gets restless. Try a physical trick. Wiggle your toes inside your shoes. Yes, it sounds strange, but it works. It's a tiny movement no one sees, but it helps you release tension discreetly. That way, you hold your ground without bottling things up. Another helpful habit is to have a mental phrase ready for those moments. Something like, "I don't let anyone rush me." That's your anchor, your reminder. Because this isn't about looking calm, it's about being calm. The best part of all this? When you learn to control silence, you also learn to control your words. Because now you don't feel that urgency to respond. You no longer need to have the last word. And funnily enough, when you speak less, your words carry more weight. They hit deeper, because they come clean, without noise. 7. Your results matter more than your words. Everyone says they're going to change, that this year is the one, that now it's for real, but then life stays exactly the same. January passes, March passes, and there they are. Same story, no action. You know who really makes an impact? The one who doesn't shout about it, the one who simply does it. Because in a world where everyone's talking, the one who moves in silence becomes unforgettable. Let me tell you about someone who understood this perfectly. Her name is Madison Richardson. She's a professional rock climber, the kind who trains even with broken nails. One day she decided she had to do something different if she really wanted to get to the podium. So she deleted Instagram from her life. Goodbye posts, likes, motivational comments. She stepped away from the noise so she could train like never before, not to prove anything to anyone, just focused on her goal. And what happened? She came back stronger. She didn't just compete, she won. In an interview, she said, "By stopping the need to show my progress, I accelerated it. I had more focus, more energy, more real motivation." That's the power of silence. You don't need to be on social media to get this lesson. Maybe you've also found yourself saying, "I'm going to do this," or "I'm going to achieve that." And then, nothing. You burn your energy talking, dreaming out loud, chasing that quick validation. But when you don't follow through, your words just hang there like deflated balloons. Talking is fine, sure. But acting, that's a whole different game. And when you stay quiet to build, to grow, to surprise, your respect level rises. Because you didn't ask for it, you earned it. Marcus Aurelius, who had nothing to prove to anyone, said, "Stop talking about what a good man should be one. Don't say you're going to be strong, just be strong. Don't say you're going to change, do it. Don't explain what you'll do tomorrow. Let them see it when it's already done." Because in the end, speeches are forgotten, but actions stick. And think about this. If Marcus Aurelius had Instagram, he wouldn't post a photo of his morning routine with a discipline mode on caption and fire emojis. None of that. He'd get up, train his mind, write in his journal, and live like an emperor. And 1,000 years later, you'd still be here saying, "Wow, that man had clarity," all without posting a single story. And if you want to be like him, modern version of course, here are a few steps that might help. First, swap out "I'm going to start" for "I've already started." Because when you talk about what you're going to do, your brain gets a kind of premature reward, like it thinks you already did something, and that steals your drive to actually do it. So if you haven't started yet, keep it to yourself. When you do, let your results speak. Next, keep a private log of your progress, not a display for likes. Buy a notebook. Use a note on your phone. Whatever works, but make sure it's just for you. Write down what you did today, how you felt, where you improved. That gives you perspective, without needing applause. True progress isn't measured in comments. It's measured in consistency. And finally, when you feel that urge to share something just so others will cheer you on, pause. Breathe. Ask yourself, why do I need to tell this? If it's to stay motivated, remember, the strongest motivation comes from doing, not from approval. If it's to impress, then wait until you have something truly impressive to show. My friend, I'm not saying you should be invisible. I'm saying you should become so solid, so focused, that you don't have to explain yourself. That when the time comes, People see your results and say, "I didn't see that coming." Because that's how you earn respect. Not with promises, but with proof. So if no one's clapping for you today, that's okay. The echo of your results will make more noise than 1,000 empty promises. And when that happens, you'll never need to justify yourself again, because you'll have learned to control what you say and let what you do speak for you. 8. Complaining won't save you. I'm so fed up with this job. This always happens to me. I never have time for anything. People don't change. Life's unfair. Sound familiar? We all have that one friend who constantly complains about work. They can't stand their boss. They hate Mondays. They're just counting down the days to vacation. And yet, year after year, they stay. There's also the one who complains about their partner. They don't get me. They don't support me. They're not who they used to be. But they don't do anything. They don't talk about it. They don't make a decision. They just keep repeating the same complaint over and over. And don't even get me started on the people who say they don't have time, while scrolling endlessly or binge-watching shows they don't even like. Sound familiar? And what if that friend was you? Complaining is addictive. Borja Vilaseca, one of the clearest voices on this topic, said it straight in a talk. Complaining is the ego victim's favorite language. And he's right. Because when you complain all the time, it's like narrating your pain with a round of applause in the background. You think saying it out loud is releasing it, but really you're reinforcing it, giving it more space, more weight. And meanwhile, the problem you could be solving stays exactly the same. Constant complaining is like walking with a rock in your shoe, and instead of removing it, you just describe the pain out loud. You can keep talking about the discomfort, or you can stop, bend down, and take it out. And silence. Here's the twist. Silence in the face of complaint isn't resignation. It's emotional intelligence. It's realizing that not everything needs to be said out loud, and definitely not over and over. Sometimes, what you need isn't to say it. It's to do something about it. And for that, you need to save your energy. You need to stop repeating the problem and start moving toward the solution. Try this. For one full day, count how many times you complain out loud. That's it. Don't judge yourself. Just observe. You'll be surprised. Because most of the time, we don't even realize how present those phrases are in our daily life. And that's the first step. Noticing. Another strategy that works. Replace each complaint with a question. Don't like your situation? Instead of chanting it like a mantra, ask yourself, what can I do about this? That shift takes you from victim to protagonist. And even if the answer doesn't come right away, you've already moved to a more powerful, more useful place. Also try this rule. Only talk about things you're going to act on. If you're not planning to lift a finger, save your energy. That's not suppression, it's strategy. It's like having a limited word budget. And every word wasted on a pointless complaint drains power from what really matters, from what you can actually change. My friend, this isn't about bottling everything up. It's about not turning it into your soundtrack. Because complaining won't save you. Remember what Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you interpret it. What saves you is turning thought into movement. And that starts with shutting your mouth and opening the door to action. Now tell us in the comments, is there a complaint you repeat way too often, and deep down you know it leads nowhere? Write it out like you're dropping it right here. Sometimes putting it into words is the first step toward letting it go. Your story might help someone else, or at the very least, set you a little freer. 9. Why do you say yes when you really want to say no? I get it. Saying no is scary. You feel guilty, uncomfortable, like you're being selfish. But listen closely, my friend. Every time you say yes just to avoid disappointing someone, you're saying no to your time, your energy, and your peace. And maybe the other person won't even notice, but you will. Because deep down, you know you're betraying something important inside you. Picture this. You're at work, your head about to explode, dreaming of getting home, taking a shower, and finally unplugging. And just before you leave, a coworker comes over and says, "Hey, can you help me with this report?" I'm not going to finish in time. You know it's not your responsibility. You know you've already done your part. But then almost automatically you say, yeah, sure, tell me what you need. Why? Because you don't want to seem rude. Because you think saying no will make them judge you. The result? You stay an extra hour, leave in a worse mood, do the job half-heartedly, and no one even thanks you. And the worst part? It's not the time you lost. It's that you go home mad at yourself. Because you knew what you wanted, but you didn't defend it. And believe it or not, this happens to everyone, even the most successful. Tennis star Rafael Nadal has admitted in several interviews that one of the hardest things he had to learn was how to set boundaries. For years, he said yes to commitments, events, interviews, even when he was mentally and physically drained, until one day he realized that if he didn't protect his time and mental health, he wouldn't be able to perform or live well. So he started saying no, respectfully but firmly, because in the end, no one's going to protect him unless he does it first. And it's the same with you. Saying no doesn't make you selfish. It makes you aware. It makes you free. Because speaking isn't just about expressing. It's also knowing when not to. And this is part of learning to control what you say, protecting yourself from the words you use just to please others. Because if your yes doesn't come from the heart, all you're really giving is your energy, your time, and sometimes even your dignity. Now you might be wondering, okay, but how do I start? It begins with something simple. When someone asks you for something, don't respond right away. Say, let me think about it and I'll get back to you. That phrase is gold. It buys you time to check in with what you actually want. It stops the knee-jerk reaction. Then, start practicing clear and short responses. No need for a 3-paragraph explanation. You can say, that doesn't work for me right now. Or, I can't today, sorry. It sounds easy, but it's not. That's why here's a fun trick. Imagine Seneca. Picture him in a company meeting, sitting there, serious-faced. Someone asks, can you stay late to review this? And calmly, he replies, no. I need to meditate on the fleeting nature of time. Good luck with that. Okay, maybe you wouldn't say it like that, but having a Stoic in your head gives you strength. It reminds you that your peace matters. And if it's still hard, try this exercise. Before you say yes, visualize yourself doing it. How do you feel? Light, at ease, or already grinding your teeth? Your body knows. And if your body says no, listen. Sometimes the discomfort of saying no lasts 5 minutes, but saying yes can ruin your whole day. Marcus Aurelius put it best in a simple but powerful line. Do what your nature requires of you, and don't be distracted by anything else. And what's anything else? It's that yes you said out of fear, when what you really needed was to protect your space and your well-being. Because controlling what you say isn't just about knowing when to stay silent. It's also about having the courage to say what you truly feel, even if it makes things uncomfortable. Now that everything's starting to click, and let me tell you something most people won't dare to say. There are words you don't ever need to speak, because when you say them, they trap you. But when you hold them back, they free you. And that silence, my friend, might just be the beginning of something much bigger. 10. You don't have to justify everything you do. Why didn't you reply to the message? Why didn't you come to the plan on Saturday? Why didn't you call if you knew it was important? Sound familiar? These are the kinds of questions that seem harmless, but suddenly put you on trial, like everything you do needs a neatly packaged explanation to convince everyone else. My friend, this might be the most valuable thing you'll hear today. Learning to control what you say also means this. Stop speaking just to justify yourself, because every time you feel the need to explain your path, you're handing over your peace to people who aren't even walking it with you. And that's not just exhausting, it pulls you away from your purpose. Picture this. You decide to leave a job that no longer fulfills you. No drama, no scandal. You just knew it was time. But the moment you share it, the questions start pouring in. What are you going to do now? What if you regret it? What if you can't find something better? And before you know it, you slip into justification mode. as if your decision needs approval from a jury of people who don't live your life, as if you need to convince everyone, except yourself. And the more you talk, the more doubt they plant. That's the danger of justifying when you don't need to. You give people space to plant fear where you had already planted clarity. And you know what? A lot of the time, what you really need isn't an explanation. It's silence. Because silence born from certainty holds more weight than 1,000 arguments. Epictetus said it best. Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. That lesson still cuts like a blade. You don't owe anyone a presentation of your life in exchange for their approval. Your peace doesn't need applause. All you have to do is live like someone who trusts their path, who knows what they want, even when they can't explain it fully. I know, it's not easy, but try this. Before you explain a decision, ask yourself honestly, am I saying this so they'll understand, or so I'll feel accepted? Because if it's about being validated, you're playing a dangerous game. You're trading your well-being for approval, and that always comes at a cost. Here's another tip. Practice short, clear, neutral answers. Say things like, I made the decision for myself. It feels right. No attacks, no defense, just a calm, honest fact. That's enough. You're not obligated to list the 50 reasons behind a choice only you have to live with. And finally, build one powerful skill. The art of silent confidence. Sometimes the best answer is a smile, or changing the subject, or a simple, I'd rather not get into that. Because no, not everyone deserves an explanation. And you don't need to turn your internal process into a public exhibition. Learning to control what you say will truly change you. Because once you stop justifying yourself, once you learn to stay quiet out of confidence, not fear, you'll discover something you might have been searching for. Peace. That peace that comes when you finally realize your life isn't a public debate, that your path doesn't need to be understood, to be valid. So let me ask you this. What if today you decided to live for peace with yourself, not for being understood by everyone else? How far could you go if you stopped using your voice to defend and started using it only to build? Knowing when to stay quiet, speaking with purpose, letting your actions speak for you, that's what transforms you. Because it's not about saying more, it's about saying better, about choosing silence when it adds value, and the right words only when they truly matter. Every day is a chance to grow from the inside out, without shouting it, without explaining everything, without chasing applause, just moving forward in silence, with strength. And that, my friend, is real power. If you've made it this far, write in the comments. Starting today, I choose to speak less and live better. That way, I'll know who the true Stoic warriors are who made it to the end. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and give this video a like so you don't miss out on what's coming next. I also invite you to check out our playlist, which you'll see on the screen. It's packed with ideas, stories, and advice to help you navigate life with more wisdom and confidence. Click it, and let's keep moving forward together. Until next time, take care and keep embracing your inner Stoic.